What's going on, guys? It's your boy Ryan Brower. Welcome back to the Sector 4 Nerds YouTube channel. And today I am starting a 3-episode arc on my time at Star Wars Celebration Chicago 2019, which was, I had the absolute time of my life, and I'm totally cannot wait to let you guys in on what happened. So I figure, we cover one episode will be on one day that I was at Star Wars Celebration. So I was there once Friday and Saturday and then Sunday. So those will be 3 different episodes. Hey, Dave Filoni does 3 or 4 episode story arcs in the Clone Wars all the time. I've got my own little story arcs here. So for those who don't know, first of all, before I get into some of my experiences at Celebration, before I get into that, for those who don't know what Star Wars Celebration is, it's basically, if you've ever been to a convention, it's basically your typical convention, with the exception that it's Star Wars, and you've got people cosplaying as, characters from Star Wars. You can go around, walk and see a bunch of the exhibits and stuff there, which usually people are selling like toys and games. It's a heck of a time. And then you've also got a lot of the famous actors and voice actors from Star Wars there. You can pay to get like photo ops and autographs, which cost extra money, but sometimes it's worth it. And then there's also panels that you can go to that you usually get like the rundown on things that are going on with like the movies and the TV series and whatnot. So it's just a fun time, especially for Star Wars fans. It's just an incredible experience and a fun place to be at. So let me kind of explain. I'll admit, for a while, I did not know what Star Wars Celebration was. It wasn't until Celebration London in 2016 that I found out then what Celebration was. Because I remember I was just sitting in my room one day and I went on YouTube and I started watching some of these live streams. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And then I had seen the Star Wars Rebels panel. Oh, excuse me. I remember watching the Star Wars Rebels Season 3 panel. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. So they're just, talking about Rebels and what the future season's going to be like and stuff. And then they showed a trailer, which was, for those who've seen the Star Wars Rebels Season 3, you know that that's where they introduced Thrawn, and I went nuts for that. Everyone in London went nuts for it. It was great. I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool. So then I was like, okay, they don't do this all the time, right? This is just like a little special thing that they're doing, Star Wars for the fans and things like that. And then I find out, oh, they're coming to Orlando in 2017. I'm like, is this an annual thing? And I went back and looked. I'm like, oh, they've been doing this for years now. And I'm like, dang, I gotta go to one of these, right? So yeah, I was like, dang, I'm all for this. Like, hook me up with tickets? How do I get my hands on this stuff, right? And so my brother and I talked, and my brother is also a huge Star Wars fan, by the way. We both talked to him like, dude, we got to do this. And we find out that they're coming to Chicago in 2019, and I live in Wisconsin. We live in Wisconsin. So for us, that's like a 2-hour drive. We just both looked at each other when we found that out, like, dude, this is it. We got to do this. And so, yeah, that was kind of like, okay, we got our hands on tickets, and we were the entire year before Celebration Chicago. We were just so hyped, could not wait. So let me get into some of the experiences that we had there. We had some people coming along with us that also enjoyed Star Wars. We had my brother's friend there and his father. My friend from college, Caleb, was there, who I'm also hoping to get on this channel pretty soon to either probably talk about some Star Wars stuff, or maybe in a Avengers Endgame review if you guys want to see that. So we were all really excited for this. And so for me and my brother, it was a 2-hour car ride. We checked into our hotel. This is a funny story. So this is on Thursday, by the way, I believe April 11th, I think it was. So we're checking into our hotel, and we're in the lobby, right? Because we're, doing all the typical check-in stuff. And my brother notices Dennis Branville, who, for those who don't know, is the design director for EA Dice. He walked right past us. I had no idea, by the way, because I wasn't, like, I was just zoning out. I was not paying attention. And my brother just sees him walk by and he looks over. He's like, Ryan, that's Dennis Branville. I'm like, wait, what? And like, I didn't see him. It was too late. He was already gone. I'm like, wait, why didn't you tell me before? And so it was pretty cool. So obviously Dennis Branville, since he's the design director for EA, he works on things like Star Wars Battlefront, which I'm hoping to do some reviews on those games in the future. So I hope you guys are excited for that. We get checked into our hotel and we're just getting hyped for this event. We cannot wait for Star Wars Celebration. So the next morning, Friday, finally getting into it, right? After 5 minutes. We meet up with my brother. So I'm gonna start spilling out names here. So my brother's name is Christopher, or his friends call him Chris. So that way I don't have to keep referring to him as my brother. So Chris and I go down and we meet up with his friend Jacob and his father, who are also coming down for celebration. And we take a bus ride there. I guess Star Wars Celebration, they had like this thing where like if you were staying at certain hotels and stuff, they'd have shuttles come and pick you up, take you to the event. I guess it was free, quote unquote free, when you're paying like, hundreds of dollars for these tickets, I mean, I was kind of over exaggerating. They're not hundreds of dollars, but anyway, still a lot of money though. I keep going off topic here. So then we get to the exhibitor, we get to Celebration, and we're waiting in line to get in, and I meet up with my friend Caleb. We all stand and wait in line together. We waited in line for about an hour to get in because I believe they opened at 10 and we had gotten in line around 9 o'clock in the morning. So then it finally comes time for us to get in, and we get into the exhibit hall, which, by the way, you just walk in there and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is happening. Like, we're finally here. This is going to be great. And we walk in and we just see a bunch of really cool stuff. We go around and walk through some of the, like, the toy exhibits and stuff, which, the collectors, action figures and stuff. Caleb was totally into that because he's a huge action figure collector. I was looking around, I'm like, oh my gosh, like some of these toys that existed, I'm like, I had no idea. It was all really cool. And we looked around and saw a bunch of like signed photos of people and a bunch of cool posters. We just went around and looked at everything that the exhibits had to offer. Another thing about Star Wars Celebration, the cosplayers. So many of them, and they were all, throughout the entire weekend, I'm going to praise the cosplayers all weekend. The stuff that they design and create and then come to Celebration with is beyond incredible. I mean, Caleb and I were both taking each other's phones and would like get pictures with people, and just, I mean, it was people there, so many characters from, everything from like your Obi-Wan Kenobi to Chewbacca to, all the characters that and then even characters from like the Old Republic. Like, I got a picture with a girl who was cosplaying as Satele from Knights of the Old Republic. I'm just like the design, the stuff that these people come up with, it's so fantastic, and I cannot praise these guys enough. They're so good. So then, as we're, walking around, we're looking at exhibits, we're taking pictures with people who are cosplaying. We're like, oh my gosh, look at this guy. It's Plo Koon, or look at this guy. It's Asajj Ventress. And it's just like, we're all both nerding out about this. We're all having a great time there. So then, my brother had come up with the idea. So just so you guys know, the Star Wars Celebration store is across the hall from the exhibit hall. So it's two different things, and like you could either choose when you got there to get in line for the store, or you could choose to get in line for the exhibit hall. We spent about a good, maybe, I think it was like hour and a half in the exhibit hall. And then The episode 9 panel was going on at the time to reveal new stuff about episode 9, which I'm going to cover that panel in a second. But the reason why we were not able to get into that panel or even into the screening rooms is because they have this new system called the lottery. And what the lottery is you basically, when you get your tickets, you use the barcode that they give you on the tickets and you scan them in online and stuff, and it'll enter you into this lottery to get into the morning panels, because the morning panels are always the busiest. And over the years, you would have people like staying overnight at the convention center just to try to get into these big panels in the morning. Even when that happened, when people would spend the night, they still wouldn't get in. So the way they would fix that this year is to do this new lottery system where it was either you win the lottery and you get tickets into the panel, or you don't win and just don't even, there's going to be no line. So don't stand in line for it. You don't get in. So, I mean, unfortunately, we didn't win any of these lotteries, which I thought was kind of unfortunate. I mean, I appreciate the fact, though, that, they don't have people queuing overnight and things like that, because I'm sure that can be kind of rough. But, I mean, everyone's got their own opinions on it. I'm not going to try to sway you into saying whether it was good or bad. I mean, overall, I think it's a decent idea. I just wish that, because I were hearing stories about how people, won lotteries for all the panels and for all the morning panels. I'm like, oh, that sucks because, I didn't win any. But the lottery was only for the morning panels. The afternoon panels was free reign, where if you stood in line, it was first come, first serve, unless you paid extra for VIP stuff, which I'm not going to get into. So we decided, my brother had told me, he's like, we should wait in line because the day previous we had heard that the line for the Celebration store was 5-hour wait, and then it was getting to the point where they had to close down the line because there were so many people. They were also having some technical problems throughout the day, so it was a hot mess. But we went into the line, and we only waited for about an hour in the Celebration store line because we figure, okay, most of the people are either, are going to be occupied with watching the episode 9 panel, whether it be in the Celebration stage where it was live, whether it was in the Galaxy stage or the Twin Sun stage where they were streaming it, or even at the Star Wars show stage where you could just stand and watch from this massive monitor. Obviously, though, you'd have to just look up the whole time and your neck will start hurting after a while. And I know that because I watched the Mandalorian panel that way on Sunday, which we will get into on my 3rd episode. So yeah, I mean, we figure everyone's busy with that. Let's go wait in line. And we only ended up waiting in line for an hour. And what I did is the convention center had Wi-Fi. So I hooked my phone up to the Wi-Fi and I started watching the panel via live stream. So I had watched the entire panel, and coincidentally, I got in that line when the panel began. And I got into the store as the panel ended and the trailer was finished and everything. I'm like, that was perfect timing on our parts. It was really cool. So I do, though, however, I'd like to get into the episode 9 panel a little bit and kind of talk about that because it was a big panel. It was probably the panel that I think had the most hype going into it. It was probably the biggest way you could start out Celebration panel-wise and as far as revealing new content. And I figured too, I'm like, okay, JJ, you've got to give us a trailer or something. People are going to come into this expecting a trailer. I figured JJ's got a lot of pressure on him right now to do well for this panel, especially with the amount of controversy that The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi have had. I figure, okay, you got to get something to get this train back on the, you know what I mean? You get what I'm saying? He had to deliver. So, and overall, I think he did. The panel started out, they also had, normally at these panels, you have Warwick Davis hosting the Celebration stage. He's been doing that for years now. David Collins is usually hosting the Galaxy stage. And recent years, they've had, I think, Amy Ratcliffe doing the Twin Sun stage, or whatever the smaller stage name is. They switch that one every year. But instead for this panel, they had Stephen Colbert out there. For those who don't know, he does The Late Show. I'm assuming you guys know what that is. If you don't know what that is, look it up. So he comes out there to do the panel, and he first brings out J.J. Abrams and Kathleen Kennedy. I'm like, okay, here we go. We bring out the people running the show, and to be honest, I'm not a big Kathleen fan, but that's a whole nother story for a whole nother video. But the crowd was absolutely electric throughout this entire panel. Every time someone came out or every time someone was about to talk, the crowd would just go nuts. Great crowd all panel long. So, oh, excuse me. Got to clear my throat here. So they started talking about Carrie Fisher, and which I thought was nice that, that she's still in this movie and that JJ's using footage that he had from The Force Awakens in this film to kind of finish Leia's story, which I thought was awesome. And he had said how CGI was never in the question. They weren't going to get another actor to do it, which I completely agree with. Why would you? Carrie Fisher is so iconic. You cannot replace her as Leia. And so some time has gone by in this movie, according to JJ, and he talks about, he doesn't really go into detail, which, it kind of stinks. I was kind of hoping he would tell us, like, okay, it's been set time since Last Jedi, but he didn't really go over that. So then they had brought out Anthony Daniels. And this is also the part of the panel where I started to get a little iffy on Stephen Colbert being the host for this panel. Now, don't get me wrong. When Stephen Colbert came out and he started making a bunch of Star Wars references and, making people laugh, I'm like, he did a good job. But then as the panels start to went on, it just seemed like little by little he was starting to just maybe not lose interest, but like lose sight on what he was talking about. Because he was saying how, like, Anthony Daniels, you've been in all the films. Not that that's the biggest thing in the world, but he hasn't. Unless now I think, he wasn't in Solo, was he? No, he wasn't. So now someone's going to go watch Solo and they're going to find 3PO and they're going to roast me in the comments now and be like, oh, you said 3PO wasn't in all the movies. No, I'm pretty sure he wasn't. So just the little things, you know what I mean? So Anthony Daniels is such a comedian, and he was really funny. He was saying how, like, Alexa and Siri are things that terrify him, and it was going on. I'm like, okay, whatever. So then Billy D. Williams comes out. I'm like, oh, yes, Lando, because Lando's coming back and stuff, and I loved Lando. Lando's one of my favorite characters. Solo kind of ruined him. That's another story for another video. But I was really excited to see Billy D. Williams back, as I think Lando's a really cool character. And I feel like Billy did kind of struggle with his promo work a little bit, but I mean, that's to be expected, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna critique someone based on how well they can cut promos on their characters and things like that. But, he was out there, he said how Lando had never left him and the crowd cheered for that. I'm like, okay. So then they bring out what Steven called the next generation cast. So he brought out everyone from the cast. So he brought out, like, people like Finn and Poe and Rey, all the actors. And I'll run through the names here. So you have Naomi Aki, I believe is, if I pronounce any of these names wrong, I apologize. But I believe it's Naomi Aki who is playing the character of Janna. She's a new character. There's already people theorizing that she's Lando's daughter. I could definitely see that. We'll see what happens. John Boyega, who does Finn, and he and Oscar Isaac, who does Poe, had, like, they were both hilarious out there. They kept on teasing, like, the Finn and Poe relationship, you know what I mean? People that say, like, oh, Finn and Poe should be a couple. They kept on kind of teasing that, and I got a good laugh out of that. Daisy Ridley was out there, who does Rey. It was also her birthday that day, I guess, and I didn't really know that until people started yelling happy birthday. You can hear it through the stream, and she was saying how, like, oh, thanks, guys, and then the crowd starts singing happy birthday. I feel like only in Star Wars would a crowd do that. Only Star Wars fans, I feel like, would do that. I'm like, oh, that was great. Then she also said she was 27 too. She made that comment. Kelly Marie Tran was out there who did Rose. Kudos to this crowd because they mention Kelly's name and they go wild. The reason for so for those who don't know the story, last year after the Last Jedi was done and it was released, people started harassing Kelly Marine online through social media and were saying, oh, Rose sucks, and just stuff that should not have been said to her was said. And it caused her to delete all of her social media accounts. She kind of went low key for a little while. You didn't really hear much about her. And so it was awesome because the crowd just started chanting, Kelly, Kelly. I'd just like to point out, for those people who did all that stuff, said all that stuff to her online, I'd just like to point out, I understand where people do not like Rose. I really do, because I'll admit I'm not the biggest fan of Rose either. However, to go and verbally assault someone online over work that they were doing as, like, first of all, if you're going to deliver any hate, which I don't recommend doing, but if you're going to get on someone's case about Rose and you're going to say all that mean stuff, go to Rian Johnson, go to Kathleen Kennedy, go to the people who are behind making the character how she is. That's not Kelly's fault. That is production's fault, and that is the writing staff's fault. So for the people who went and said all that stuff to her, screw you guys. But kudos to this crowd for chanting for her and just making her understand that, like, there are people out there that are going to hate on you for what you do, no matter what you're doing. Like, I'm certain, I'll start getting hate soon for stuff I do on YouTube. Some people are just like that. You know what I mean? But not everybody is like that. There are people who are going to stand up for you and are going to care about you and the things that you do. And those people that were in that room were the best example of that. And so I thought that was extremely awesome. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of Rose's character, but no one deserves to get that kind of hate online for doing a job and trying to support their family. You know what I mean? They're just doing their job to help provide for themselves and for others around them. So anyway, back to the panel. Oh, okay. So JJ, another comment on Rose, which is sort of a segue with JJ here. JJ said that he was grateful to Rian Johnson for a lot of things in episode 8. Was he, though? I mean, I'm not going to get into that. But he said he was grateful to Rian Johnson for a lot of things he did in episode 8. The greatest thing that Rian did was casting Kelly Marie, and the crowd cheered for that as well. I'm like, all right, good job, JJ. They then had, I'm going to pronounce this name wrong, so I apologize. I can't talk right now. Jonas Suotomo, I believe it is, who does Chewbacca in the newer films and stuff. Obviously, Peter Mayhew did Chewbacca in the original trilogy and stuff, and also to my heart goes out to his family right now, as for those who don't know, Peter Mayhew passed away a couple days ago, so my heart goes out to the family. He said how, Jonas said how he was grateful to be playing Chewbacca, and he kind of learned from Peter, who was kind of like his mentor with Chewbacca. We then find out in this panel too, so I'm kind of just like skipping through a lot of this stuff because I just want to give you guys the basic knowledge of everything that had happened. BB-8, I guess, has a new friend named D-O, I believe was the nickname. Or D0, D-O, I have do. It says, okay. But it's like this new droid that I guess is going to be his friend or whatever. He's kind of small, like BB-8 and stuff. So then JJ says, how would you guys like to see a teaser trailer? Crowd goes nuts. I'm like, okay, guys, here we go. And I'm sitting there in line with my friend Caleb, and we're sitting there watching the trailer. For those who have not seen this trailer yet, go and watch it. I may even have it up on this channel during this video. Maybe not. We'll see. but just so much happened in this trailer. You saw shots of Rey, running through a desert. Which is it? Jakku? Is it Tatooine? I feel like it's gonna be Jakku just because Rey is technically from there. I don't think it's going to be Tatooine as much as I kind of wanted it to be, but that's okay. And they show Rey running from like this TIE fighter silencer type thing, and she does like this amazing flip where she's going to jump over it and stuff. And it says like coming this Christmas or whatever, and I'm just going like, yes, thank you, Santa. And they start showing other shots from the trailer. They show stuff from like Finn and Poe. Fantastic trailer, and they show Billy D in there as Lando. I'm like, yeah, Lando. We get to see Lando, and he's sitting there in the Falcon laughing. What role he's going to have in Episode 9, I have no clue. But I'm very much looking forward to finding out what his game is in that movie. But the final bits of the trailer, so they have just kind of set this up. They have Mark Hamill talking a lot in this trailer as Luke Skywalker saying how like we've passed on all we know, 1,000 generations live through you now, talking to Rey and stuff. And they get to a point where they're cutting to a shot of all of our heroes together, like Rey, Finn, Poe. Rose was the only one who wasn't there, which was interesting. I don't know if she's going to be on this mission or not, but all of our heroes together. I think Chewbacca was in the shot, and they're all looking at what appears to be the Death Star 2 kind of crashed on the planet. So I was kind of like, okay, I feel like the Death Star should have been blown up. Where are they going with this? Also, where are they at in that trailer too? Like that planet, where are they at? Is that like maybe it was the planet that was right next to the forest moon of Endor that maybe the Death Star crashed in there, but I thought it blew up and, but that's, we can talk about that later. But the biggest reveal of that trailer came at the end. So Mark Hamill, as they're showing the shot of the Death Star, he says, no one's ever really gone. The screen goes blank and you hear this laughter. And at first it's you're kind of thinking like, is that who I think it is? And by the time as that laugh continues for like 3 or 4 seconds, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the Emperor. And I'm like, wait, what was it? Like both Caleb and I like looked at each other, jaws dropped. I'm like, what was that? And was that the Emperor? And I'm like, that had to be the Emperor, right? And I'm like, what does this all mean? And the best part about this too was after they showed that, they cut back to the crowd and the crowd's all clapping. They cut back to the stage and the light there's like a spotlight that kind of turns on. And Ian McDiarmid is standing right there. The crowd goes nuts. Caleb and I are sitting there going crazy. We're like, oh my gosh, it is the Emperor. And we all kind of figured with the laugh it was going to be the Emperor. But just having Ian on that stage made everything just even more perfect. And he kind of stands there for a second with the mic, and everyone kind of quiets as he's going to talk down. And he just goes, roll it again. And so they play the trailer back for a second time, and that's how the panel ends. But it was so awesome. I cannot wait for Episode 9. What the Emperor is gonna, how is he alive? What is he gonna do in this movie? I don't know. Obviously I've had 20 different conversations between talking with my brother and talking with Caleb about it. We've got a bunch of different theories on what could happen. I cannot wait for this. And also, kudos to JJ. I had said at the start of this, he had we needed something big going into this, and we got that. So thank you, JJ. Thank you, everyone working on Episode 9. Great panel, great trailer. It was awesome. So then, after the panel, like I said, coincidentally, as the panel ended, we had gotten into the Celebration store because we were moving slowly in line throughout the entire time, and we had finally gotten to the store. And we get in there, I'm like, okay, my mission was to find one shirt and, just as a little souvenir for Celebration, right? So I find a Star Wars Celebration Chicago 2019 shirt. I'm like, okay, this is great. I got my souvenir. Let's go. I start looking around at other shirts and I go, oh boy, I'm going to want to buy some of these, aren't I? And so I ended up buying a couple extra shirts, which resulted in me spending quite a bit amount of money, but I came prepared. It was worth it. I had bought so I bought my Celebration Chicago shirt. I had bought a Clone Wars saved shirt that had the helmet that is going to be a part of the Siege of Mandalore, that the 501st are going to wear. That's orange and everything to represent Ahsoka, and I'm so incredibly hyped for that. I'm a huge Clone Wars guy, and I did get to go to the panel on Sunday, and when we do the episode for my Sunday review, we're going to talk about that because that was probably the thing I was looking forward to most over the weekend. So I bought my Clone Wars saved shirt with the helmet on it. And then I also bought a shirt, a Star Wars Rebels shirt of the painting at the end of season 4 that they kept cutting to with all of our heroes on it. And they put that on a shirt, and I'm like, okay, I gotta buy that too because I also really love Rebels. So I did that. And I obviously had to wait in line for like 15, 20 minutes just to check out, but that was fine too, and it was all well worth it, and I absolutely loved the shirts that I got. So then after that, I'm going to try and speed things up here a little bit. We went to the upper level of the building. So the exhibit hall and stuff was all on level 3. The celebration store was on level 3. We went to the 4th level, but there was like nothing up there, so I'm like, oh, okay, let's just go back down. So we went back into the exhibit hall, and we started looking around at more stuff, taking more pictures of people who were cosplaying and stuff. Yes, I lost my train of thought there for a second. So then, around 1:20, I had a photo op with Tia Surkar, who, for those who don't know, does the voice of Sabine Wren, who is one of my favorite female characters in Star Wars. So I'm obviously I'm trying to figure out too. This is day 1, so I figured, all right, this is my testing day to kind of figure out how the photo op and autograph stuff works. I had bought most of my autograph and photo op stuff was on Saturday, and I did have one on Sunday, but I had one on Friday as kind of like my test run to see like, okay, this is what I should expect going forward throughout the weekend. So I get in line, and I'm like, okay, I'm one of so the way it works, it's very confusing, a very confusing setup. So you have a line just to get into the spot where they're going to be autographing, but even there's a line, right? So I'm waiting in line just to get into the photo op autograph area, and I get to the front, and they're like, okay, show me, the tickets that you have and stuff. I showed on my email. Or actually, no, excuse me. At first, I had them scan my badge because originally that's where I thought my tickets were. Because everyone else was having their badges scanned. So I'm like, okay, I'll do it too. And also, this was kind of on me a little bit. I had forgotten that I had ordered my autographs and stuff, and I had them send the tickets to my email. But no one even remotely thought to remind me of that, by the way, which also I was kind of disappointed about, because they were like, oh, okay, why is your ticket not working? Like, why don't you just wait over here and we'll figure something out? And I'm like, okay. So I'm kind of scrolling through my emails and stuff. I'm like, oh, wait, can I give them this? And I showed them, like, does this work? And they're like, yeah, and stuff. And I'm like, are you serious? Like, y'all couldn't have told me that before. But I mean, it's okay, because obviously I'm sure they were probably having stressful days and stuff too. And, they may not know how it all works, but I would have preferred it if they did. So then I'm waiting in line to get to Tia. And by the way, I probably could have been at the front of that Tia line, by the way, because there was no one there when I was first up there. But then when I had to wait and everything, people started going over to photo op with Tia. And I'm like, okay, now I'm waiting a bit longer. That's fine. Originally, too, my Tia photo op was supposed to be at 1 o'clock. Also to point out too, I had ordered my autograph and photo op stuff like way early on because I didn't know how quickly things were going to sell out. Now I know for if I ever go to Star Wars Celebration again, which I definitely plan on doing someday, if I go back, not to order my autographs until later on, because I was sitting with my photo op and autograph tickets for almost a year, and it wasn't until a month before Celebration where we finally got the times for when we were going to be having these autographs. But then, to make matters even worse, I was like, okay, so I'm planning my days around this now. So I go here at this time. I want to go to this panel at that time. And then like 2 or 3 days before Celebration, they essentially switched all of my photo op and autograph times and stuff. I'm like, okay, guys, really? Now this is messing up this, and I'm now not going to be able to go to that. And I'm like, okay. But I mean, that was probably one of my only complaints about Star Wars Celebration was that they were changing times on me. Originally, the photo op was supposed to be at 1, but it got moved to 1:20. I'm like, that kind of stinks, because I was hoping to try and get into the 20 years of Lego Star Wars panel at 1:30. So unfortunately, that didn't happen, but I did get my photo op with Tia, so obviously that was well worth it. I get in there, and I do realize and stuff. I was kind of hoping I could talk to her for a minute or so, but as I was kind of expecting, it was literally just like, hi, photo op, leave. So I just went in there and I said to her, I was like, hi, and I was like, hi, I'm a big fan. And she's like, oh, thanks. And we took the photo. Thank you. It was done. I'm like, okay. But I'm like, okay, at least now I have an idea for how the photo ops work. So I'm like, okay, now that kind of prepares me for the rest of the weekend to come. And so I got my photo done with Tia, and I'm like, all right, this is cool. I got to take a photo with a character that I very much love, who's probably, like I said, is one of my favorite, not just female characters in Star Wars, but just like one of my probably in my top 5 favorite characters in all of Star Wars. And I will go through eventually, and I will tell you guys who all my favorite characters are and things like that, and I'll discuss why. But for future videos, though. So here's a funny little story. So as I'm walking out of the photo op little booth, I'm walking out of the curtain, and you go through like this small little, like they have this path that leads you towards the area where like they print your photo for you, and they get it scanned and everything, whatnot. So I'm walking towards that area, and there's like curtains and everything like that are to my right that are kind of like, I think was like the backstage area or something. I'm like, oh, the photo op area is like right next to where all people could be walking around and stuff, right? Which was crazy, because, and I didn't know that at the time, but all of a sudden, someone who was in front of me that took a photo op before me was saying like, hey, Sam, how's it going, man? And I'm like, wait, Sam, what? And like I hear a voice go like, yeah, hey, how's it going? It was Sam Witwer. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's Sam Witwer. I'm like, I turn around to the guy, I'm like, was that Sam Witwer? And he's like, yeah, that was Sam Witwer. I'm like, what? And I'm like, oh, I was standing like few feet from Sam Witwer. Luckily, though, I had both a photo op and a autograph with him the next day, because I absolutely love Sam Witwer. He's like one of my favorite peoples on the face of the planet. I'm such a huge fan of his and his work on the Clone Wars and Rebels and the Force Unleashed games, which I will get into in my next video. Also, the reason why I had gotten, just a little side note, the reason why I had gotten my photo op and autograph signing with him both on the same day, like, why would you do both? I also thought, too, that it was going to be like you get your photo op and autograph done at the same time. I was wrong. That's 2 separate things, but that was on me, miscommunication part on my error, on my part, I should say. So then after that, and I got my photo and stuff, I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm so happy. I got my photo done with Tia, yay. I went around the exhibit hall for a little bit, but then I went to the Music of the Phantom Menace panel with David Collins as the host of it, and that was a fun panel. I'm not really going to go too much into that, but I mean, it was a great panel, and I learned some stuff about music, because I don't really know much about music as far as like notes and everything and what goes into making it, so I didn't know much about that on my part. But I'm like, okay, there's some cool, interesting stuff in this panel. Also, I'm pretty sure they have it on live stream or something. If you guys want, check that out. And then after that, I think was the time where we ended up leaving on Friday. So then we just went and left and got some dinner with everyone that was with us. And okay, so here is a funny story about dinner real quick, and I want to kind of wrap this video up soon because I've realized I've been talking for a long time. So we go out to dinner, and we all order. So me, my brother Christopher, who I don't know if I've mentioned his name yet. So me, Christopher, Jacob, and Caleb, we're all sitting next to each other at dinner, and we were talking about stuff at Celebration. We all looked at what we were ordering and stuff, and like the 3 of us were going to be ordering burgers, and we were all going to kind of like customizing them to, you know, like one person wanted, you know, just the burger, and another one of us wanted, you know, lettuce and tomatoes and, you know, stuff on that burger. So our waiter comes by and we're customizing order our burgers, and I can kind of tell she was kind of getting annoyed by it, which is weird though, because I figure as a waiter you should know to, like, people are going to want to customize their orders and things like that. So me, Christopher, and Jacob all ordered burgers, and then Caleb had ordered it was some kind of chicken entree, and like as he was saying that, like she had this look of relief on her face. She's like, oh, like she didn't really say anything, but you could just tell she's like, oh, thank God I don't have to write down another customizable burger option and stuff. So we all kind of laughed about that afterward, and it was really funny. But then after that, we ended up going back to the hotel. Caleb ended up leaving and went back to Wisconsin because he had gotten tickets for the day because he had stuff going on throughout the weekend. So yeah, I mean, when my brother and I got back to our hotel room, like the both of us were on our phones. Probably, I'm assuming I was watching the Last Jedi trailer like 20 million times. He was probably doing the same thing. I was watching YouTube videos of people reacting to set trailer, and I was just like, oh my God. Like, I was trying to analyze it, like, so what is Palpatine gonna do in this movie? And I'm like, oh, what's going on? So yeah, that pretty much wraps up my day, my day one at Star Wars Celebration. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This video did go a bit longer than I thought it was going to, but make sure you guys like, subscribe, all that fun stuff, turn on notifications, and I will see you guys next time.